We got
it. I think, Mikai, we're not recording this session.
We talked to her and we're going to record it and then replace that one clip.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Anyway, we'll record and then we'll decide if we want to use it.
Okay. Sorry.
All right.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, hustle, abuse, and making ends meet. Thank you all very much for coming today. This is work that Rosa and I have been working on for some years now. Today's presentation also includes material generated by Robin O'Day from North Georgia University and research done by Soma Ayano from London School of Economics. So I just want to put that out because we really appreciate their help on these sorts of things. What you're going to see here is a larger part of a larger project. There's a curriculum component. All of this started in the classroom, and a lot of when at that point Rosa was one of the students in the classroom, and it was really Rosa who kind of pointed out, said, we can do something bigger than what we're doing here, both scholarly and through support. And we'll talk a little bit about both of those as we go. Maybe we can put the link in the chat to Refugee Voices Japan. This is a student.
Put it up. So
okay, great. This is a student project that they add to every semester. So each semester it gets larger and larger. But so far it's one of the larger efforts on refugee documentary. The second part of the larger project is a support component. Through Sophia Refugee Support Group, and I think one of the leaders, Meg, is in the audience here, deliver food, usher refugees to doctor visits, do document translation, Japanese language teaching, and related activities for the refugees who we're working with. And then there's a scholarly component, articles, talks, presentations, and that's what you're looking at today. The refugees in our project, just so it's clear, these are foreigners who have come to Japan seeking refugee recognition. The ones that are here are mostly political, religious, or sexual persecution victims because of things we'll tell you about later on. Oftentimes they're here for years and sometimes decades waiting for recognition. This is the refugee asylum seeker population is quite heterogeneous. So there's a whole bunch of other refugee asylum applicants who mostly Asian, who come in through brokers and are whisked right up into rural factories in Japan. We don't have that much contact with them. So the people who we have are down here, mostly in different parts of Kanto. We usually have long-term relationships with them. So most of the people who we're talking to today, we've known for 2 or 3 or 4 years. Just to give you an idea of who they are. And who our audience is, and I guess who we want our audience to be. Rosa and I wrote The Whole Block Goes Down, Refugees in Japanese Detention Centers During the Pandemic. This was direct offshoot of the support we were doing. We were going to the detention center right down in Shinagawa on a regular basis. And as COVID kind of washed in, they were caught in a situation that was basically untenable. And we wrote this up for Japan Focus and open sort of venue, so there's no paywalls. A lot of people were able to read it, and I thought this was kind of good. But I could tell as soon as we published it, Rosa was kind of going, "Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's not bad." And we've started talking about it, and I guess we started seeing that what we missed in that article is part of the emotional complexity of their situation. We didn't miss it when we were collecting data, but we didn't communicate it in a way that we thought was as effective. We have all the numbers and we have some quotes, but the anxiety and the fear and the other kinds of emotional context that is required if we're going to understand the rest of the stuff was harder to communicate. From that, recognize the limitations of what is otherwise a very good article, and we recommend that you take a look at it. But she also made a film called COVID in Detention Center, which actually maybe you could put the URL of the Vimeo in the chapter too, Rosa. Is that possible?
Yeah, I will do that.
Because it's a longer film, so it's 17 minutes, super powerful, and just fascinating. That's the first time we've been trying to do that, and since then we've been continually to try to do to tread that line between academic and scholarly and reaching other audiences in other kinds of ways. Here, to give you an idea, give you an idea of the project and give you an idea of a little bit of the people who are coming here, we're going to show you one short clip that was just finished editing a little while ago, to give an idea of who the refugees are and why they come. Do you want to introduce this one, Rosa?
Sorry, I cannot see the slide here.
Right, it's
Oh, okay.
right.
I just shared the Vimeo link for the COVID in detention. Please let me know if there's any problems again. Thank you. So from our work and this new project, we have made some clips that hopefully will illustrate the predicament our refugee friends find themselves in, including the emotional complexity going through a journey like the asylum seekers do. This is the first time we're presenting this clip, so thank you everyone so much for joining this presentation today. Our first narrator is one woman we've known for a few years now, and she will be explaining why she left her country in the first place. And like most of our refugee friends, she fled persecution, seeking some asylum in Japan.
When I was a child, my dreaming job was very different, maybe unavailable. Going to the space, I wanted to search truth, and I always thought we couldn't be alone in the world. I always try to watch sky, nights, days. That was really amazing. I was an inspector in a housing corporation. Every places in my country rules, but bad people. They don't care about our rights. They don't care about people's rights. I tried to stand against them, but I really was alone. Nobody helped me. Nobody supported me. I hadn't enough power to stand up against them. Our situation is very more bad when we try to be silent. Being silent against bad things is more dangerous for us. I can understand this, but other people in my country still cannot understand. They started to wake up, but not completely yet. I threatened several times, if you be a woman without family support, this is very difficult for you to live in my country, especially if you love beauty and try to be beautiful. This is more dangerous. Men try to abuse you, and if you say no, they will make problem for you. I had experiences many times in my country because of this. I try to talk with women and try to say them their rights to can unite together and do something for ourselves. But my efforts was not enough, I think. I feel so tired, but I cannot be disappointed because I think maybe this is me, and I have to do things that I think is correct. My country is same a prison, big prison, because when we could go out, we need to be very thankful. Oh, I could go out the prison. That time I thought if I go out of my country, everything will be good. But I didn't know this is not right. Because when I go out of my country, I will put in a circle of modern slavery. Refugees go out of the country with a lot of hope. They thought they can find justice out of the border, but there is no justice because we need to be cheap workers for rich companies and be very thankful, you know.
Sorry. To be a refugee or a person on the move, it means to be someone of almost unlimited hope, optimism. We have tried to capture this in our film, and I hope that you can all notice this, as it is a very representative thing of most of the people that we have spoken throughout the years. For a woman like this narrator, the threats come from all over. And this is something that we will be talking about a little bit later, but it is important to have in mind that the threats and vulnerability of women do not only exist back in their home countries, but it also exists here in Japan and in the work system today.
So as you can see just in the last video, work and labor is central to the kinds of situations that they have found themselves in, oftentimes why they left, but certainly when they are here. Work and labor in all kinds of ways that are kind of familiar, I think, is constitutive of the possibility of making claims in the world and finding a place in the world. And it certainly gives you money. It gives you some kind of stability, the possibility of you identifying your needs as opposed to getting your needs met by some support agency is all the difference in the world. Being able to control in a agentive kind of way the flow of money coming in and your ability to meet those needs yourself is quite different. Social identity is also constitutive of social identity. Moving from country to country, you walk away from almost everything that you have built, all of your networks, all of your situation, communities. So the possibility of identifying another sort of person oftentimes depends upon your ability in a new place to become working, to start contributing to others, to start contributing to society in a productive, like a materialist productive way. It's also personal identity. So many people have talked about that it's only once they start working that they return to the place, the people who they are. that they're no longer just people on the move, but they're another vehicle that they can invest in. They can identify a self that they once knew, that they had to either lost by necessity or sometimes lost by choice when they left and come to another place. Sociality, the most refugees that we talk to are quite isolated, and work is an important way of creating some kind of sociality, just being in some kind of regular contact with other people. As important, the meanings of work changes in all kinds of different sub-demographics and that sort of thing. But the gendered meanings are certainly shared in broad strokes anyway. One of our narrators said, "A man has to work in my country. Living without working is not honest, is not respectable. Here in Japan, I cannot be a respectable man without working." And of course, he's not working. A female narrator who has been here for a relatively shorter period of time said, "Work allows me to survive, of course. It's not easy work, and we'll talk about the more difficult work that women encounter, but it means I'm not dependent upon the men of my country," which for many of the women is a very important thing. Why does this come about? I suspect most people in this audience are relatively familiar with the broad outlines of Japanese refugee recognition policy. So I'm not going to dwell upon this, but I guess that this bottom number, the bottom number of Japan, this is the 2019 figures, and with 11,000 decisions. So there were more applicants that year, but not all the applicants. Immigration Service has a big backlog, and so not everybody gets a decision, either accepted or rejected. But of those 11,000 decisions, 44 were given refugee recognition, and which is a percentage substantially below 1. 37 people were given humanitarian consideration. Recently, the number has gone up a little bit to 74. COVID has messed up the number, so it's very hard to kind of trace the trajectory, although we're not looking at ever more than maybe 2%. Over the past 20 years, we've had 915 out of 87,000 acceptance rate. So Japan is so wildly out of whack with almost every rich country that this fact underlies almost everything else that happens here, and is responsible for all kinds of the issues that we're looking at. So here, the red line is the applicants. Right, the blue line is the number of people who are accepted. So as the refugee crisis raged, the actual number of people who were accepted went down for many of the years in Japan. But it's this gap that is both the problem for so many of the refugees there, but also where we locate our study of the gap between those accepted and those who are recognized. These numbers largely, or a particular reading of these numbers, largely push the policy. Japan did not do very much to support refugees. The Japan Bar Association in 2009 said, we need to give them a possibility to work. In part because of the recognition of the very little support that was given to refugees even at that point, the below subsistence level. So in 2010, the Democratic Party issued work permits after 6 months for people who are at certain points in the refugee process. It gets a little bit complicated, so we're not going to go through all the different types. But a little while later, this was also rescinded by 2018. In a press release, the Ministry of Justice has given work permits 6 months after the application upon request of an applicant. However, we have come to understand that this system was delivered incorrectly to foreigners who intend to work and has led to the increase of foreigners who abuse and misuse the refugee recognition system. This idea of that, it's certainly true that at this point from 2010, we see an increase in the number of refugees applying here. And that is roughly coordinated with this change in policy. But we also see almost every country has this same trajectory, because the world refugee crisis is exploding with Syria, and the number of people who are applying in Japan and everywhere else, independently of any kind of policy, is quite consistent. The other thing is, to our knowledge, and so far we've been unable to find anything, the immigration system, when it says it comes to our knowledge, it's sort of like they kind of have a feeling that this might be the case. There's no independent, verifiable, serious research out there that is done to try to figure out if this correlation has any structure of causality or not. Just to give you guys a little idea of where they come from, whether they refugee reports herself at the airport as soon as she arrives, or whether she comes in and then reports at the immigration service. I think all of you people who are gaijin, who are foreigners here, you've probably been to this building. You've maybe not seen this building like this, but this is the Shinagawa Immigration Building. And many of us have gone up into the first, maybe the second floor. But if you go up to the 7th floor, that's where sometimes as many as hundreds of refugees are detained. So this actual building is used as a detention facility. If through immigration, they can either be given an application status of designated activities, which means their application is accepted and they're looking at it, provisional release, or they can sometimes be put directly into the detention center if somebody decides that they have no plausible documentation. Exactly what constitutes plausible documentation is a little bit hard to know, but this is the first sorting that goes through. We're going to be looking at both of these two categories just briefly. The designated activities is the less restrictive, and you do have the possibility of getting a work permit after 6 months. It doesn't mean you get it. Many people are rejected, and you still have to renew it, but there is a possibility. Provisional release means you've been provisionally released from the detention center. So your case does not warrant being able to roam freely, but for a number of different circumstances, they will give you, let you to walk around under very strict limitations outside of the detention center. So those are the two activities that the two visa, it's not actually visas, it's just immigration statuses that most of the people you'll be watching today come from. Number of designated activities, just to give you an idea, it's up almost by, these are cumulative numbers. By 2020, we're looking at almost 100,000 people. 20,000 of them, more or less, almost, have a pending application. The more restrictive category is the karihomen, or provisional release. And here the numbers vary quite a bit, but by 2020, we're still looking at almost more than 5,000. So we're looking at a fair number of people who are in the category of needing to have a work permit in order to do any kind of work. The amount of support that the government gives you if you are a refugee asylum applicant is quite meager. If you're an adult, if you get it, it's about 1,600 yen a day. Children are about half that. It only The duration of this money that is given to you is only about 4 months. Sometimes we've also heard it's only 2 months, sometimes 6 months, but it all has to be renewed all the time. You have to go back to the refugee headquarters to request this bit of money. And it's only eligible for your first application, which in Japan is quite a restrictive condition. It's not exactly a structural fact, but for whatever reason, the Hiro office of refugee headquarters is one of the most abusive places, one of the worst parts of the refugee trajectory through their whole application process. Here's a quote from one refugee. He's saying that you have to go here to be interviewed, to be vetted in order to get accepted for this little bit of money. He says, RHQ, they work to be sure they give you no money. They make you come into the office, then they almost strip search you. They assume you are a criminal, that you've broken their rules. So really, you have to somehow prove you have no money. Interrogations, sometimes for hours, empty wallets, empty pockets, your shirt, your pants, you are debased. So the first time he did not get it, the second time he did get it, he says, when I tried to renew, same ritual, same questions, same answers, but rejected. No reason, no explanation, and he had to pay to get all the way to Hiro to be rejected because that's where the office is. He ended up sleeping in Ikebukuro in the Hiroba there in front of Ikebukuro Station for almost 2 months. If we did not need the money so badly, no one would go. And indeed, many people, especially women, do not go because it's so invasive.
Will immediately think when, for example, we see what Karihomen provisional release status or designated activity status entails. And yeah, so in this clip, our narrator mentions that the few opportunities that are out there given by those Japanese people that may not really worry or care about the laws that are put down for them, then they have to take them because they have no open doors, and those are the only options that they really have.
It also points to the fact that Japanese society is part of the possibility of their working illegal, right? I mean, it's only with a coordinated effort in order to hire them that they could ever be working in these kinds of jobs at all. So finding work, I'll briefly go through. Most work is found word of mouth, but there's also local brokers who are compatriots. The brokers, the line between broker and friend who is offering work is quite vague, and a lot of people either end up with kind of an informal barter or obligation economy where you'll share information and kind of keep track of that. But there's also more formal brokers, people who make a living off of introducing people and sometimes relocating people. Usually from that broker that is from your own country, you'll be introduced to another broker, oftentimes another foreigner, and depending on, so some ethnic groups, some national groups do car export, import, some do trash, some do, so it's divided up according to the sector, oftentimes. Then there's a little more formal haken, which is a temp service, which is, I think, most people in the room probably are working for now, yourselves. But these haken are not like recruit. These are semi-legal to clearly illegal. And they're party to the falsification of documents. So if you come to one of these places, you are going to be showed by the Hakengaisha how to fix your documents. You might be provided with some of the documents that are already false that you don't have access to, especially if you're first getting here. So it's not in that sense a little bit different from Recruit. Maybe not so different, but a little bit different. All kinds of problems are already documented with any kind of Hakengaisha. Loss of payment, loss of insurance, loss of accountability, no recourse for any kinds of conflicts. The biggest problem most people talk about is lack of a schedule. They don't know when they're going to be able to work next. You're not told you're going to be working 5 days this week and every week. It's like every day you're wondering what your schedule is going to be. This is the same in across almost all of our examples. Problems for a woman is even greater. There's fewer opportunities. They're not seen as powerful, and oftentimes are powerful, meaning they're not able to do manual labor, which is much of the labor that is here. If they are given some of those jobs, they oftentimes are quite vulnerable to the other men who are already working there. If you're working illegally, you are unable to participate in almost all of the sorts of claims making or any kind of action of accountability. Earlier, we talked about two different groups of people, right? We talked about designated activities, which can apply for a work permit, and provisional release, which cannot. And it looks like designated activities is a better status, and in many ways it is. But one of the things that's interesting is that even for people who are designated activities, their work permit is only 6 months and sometimes even less. The document that they get is almost incomprehensible. So when they show this document to employers, legitimate, real employers, the employers look at it and go, I don't know what this is. This doesn't look like anything that I've ever encountered. And the general refusal, or at least hesitation, to hire Black and brown people, even if you are a designated activity with a work permit, you can't get a job oftentimes. So paradoxically, you end up back at the same sort of illegal cycle that a truly illegal person does. So many of the places that are people with no document are working next to somebody doing the exact same job for a little bit less usually than the illegal person. So it's a status without the privilege that goes with it, or at least not cash-inable. The kinds of work, when you guys think of low-level work, you think of kombini or delivery, but none of those kinds of work are available to them. In fact, one refugee explained, you can never be in the front. You always have to find a place where it's deep enough so you can get into the back. So you're not seen. So the public doesn't see you working. It's all day work. You're paid daily in cash. Unclear if taxes are withheld. Sometimes they're told taxes are withheld. Insurance is not provided. Whether it's paid or registered or not is hard to know. Oftentimes they're working overnight, so they'll work from midnight to 8 a.m. Sometimes they'll be shipped off into kind of paltry makeshift dormitories. Because this is all KKK work, right? Kitsui tonight, again, dangerous, dirty, and bad work. The risk of injury is quite high, and in the event you get injured, what happens usually is you get dismissed right away, right? You are dismissed on the spot, and you're told to go home. Sometimes, for various reasons, you might be brought to a private illegal clinic, which are all over the city. And they will pay not with insurance, but independently to get you sewed up or fixed up. Oftentimes, though, you will have to pay, the worker will have to pay for it. And so he or she ends up being in debt for to the company, and ends up having to work more, but at no remuneration at all. There's Gemba work, house demolition and construction, which is mostly reserved for the younger men. Inside work, hotel work, warehousing work. So we know somebody who works in a Love hotel, and she gets 500 yen per room change. So she sits and waits in the Love hotel for people to vacate it. She has to go in there very quickly, clean up as much as she can. She gets 500 yen to clean it up, and then she just waits. And if it's a slow day, there wouldn't be any people at all. It depends when her shift is and all that kind of stuff. Processing, slaughterhouses, leather factories is quite common in Sumida. Bento, but again, bento is you make it from midnight to 6. So these are all regular work, right? And it's important when we talk about illegal work to realize this is not a characterization of the kind of work. It's not like they're selling drugs or they're involved in prostitution or theft of some kind, right? This is just regular work. One of the refugees says, the immigration said that I'm illegal. They want to deport me because I did illegal work, but I never did. I did regular work, abused, but regular. I just did what no one else wanted to do. Am I a criminal? I don't think so. But if so, Japan made me a criminal. So caught in the kind of crossfire of policy and practice, this is the kind of stuff that they end up doing, which obviously is work that needs to be done. Okay.
So our next narrator is someone who fled civil war, carrying his whole family with him. He will explain the hopes that he had for when he came to Japan, and what he hoped to find once arriving here.
First 7 months in Japan was the worst period in my life. All these questions started rushing to my head, and it was much more harder than I had the image of like Japan. At the moment I get there and you see the realities like the daily basis, and especially as like you, someone as a refugee who fled your country, it's like I'm gonna be in somewhere, the government's gonna help in the beginning a little, then I'll work hard on my language, whatever skills, find a work, whatever. But then when I came here I was surprised, that's like none of this is happening. What was really happening is that after we went to apply for the refugee status, we figured out that the first 6 or 7 months for a refugee or any people who comes new to Japan to apply for refugee status, that they can't work for 6 or 7 months. And they're pretty isolated. It's like, tried to do a phone contract, I couldn't. I tried to open a bank account, I couldn't. I came with my family and it was like how I'm gonna provide, or how we gonna survive, how we gonna do, how my future is gonna be, is how I'm gonna take care of this all by my own. So it was really hard, and I don't know, like finding a job, you don't have a visa and you have to provide your family, and that moment you realize that, oh, your life is getting worse from here for a while. I'm just so against this period because it doesn't make any sense. I mean, if the person or the refugee who came to Japan and already applied for the refugee status, at least you can make them work. Anything, factory work, whatever the shittiest work that not normal Japanese people can do it, I would have done it that time because I really needed it. As a young person who's coming here, you have the energy, I can work, and I can do stuff. Why you're not letting me? I didn't care at the time because I needed to work. My family comes first. So I was like, I need to provide my family, I'm gonna find a way, I don't care what it is. That's all I was thinking about at the moment. I used to climb, I don't know, those the poles for like 3 meters to put on this big ropes that cover the other houses from the fragments of the crashing, and without any protections, without any ropes, without anything. So if I fall, I'm out. It's like and nobody cares. Second thing is I had an accident where a rusty nail came into my foot, which my foot is just a sneakers. I was working in sneakers at the time, and all their shoes is like with metal. I couldn't afford that at the time. So, and that's what put me in a hospital for tetanus or hashofu. Plus, you work in any type of weather. They don't stop. I had some times where snow is like around under my knees and we're still working and cleaning, and so they don't stop. Rain, snow, typhoons, you're gonna be working, so it's happening. It's no escape. Yeah. The way they saw me back then, yeah, I think it's all of them. They saw me as a refugee, as a Gaijin, as Middle Eastern with a beard. So yeah, that's all I think affected, like on the way I was treated. I felt like it's treating me as a slave, or just, like a maid running around, like take care of the shittiest stuff or small stuff. Family, and it was like how I'm gonna provide, or how we gonna survive, how we gonna do, how my future is gonna be, is how I'm gonna take care of this all by my own. So it was really hard, and I don't know, like finding a job, you don't have a visa, and you have to provide your family, and that moment you realize that, oh, your life is getting worse from here for a while. I'm just so against this period because it doesn't make any sense. I mean, if the person or the refugee who came to Japan and already applied for the refugee status, at least you can make them work. Anything, factory work, whatever the shittiest work that not normal Japanese people can do it, I would have done it that time because I really needed it. As a young person who's coming here, you have the energy, I can work, I can do stuff. Why are you not letting me? I didn't care at the time because I needed to work. My family comes first. So I was like, I need to provide my family. I'm gonna find a way. I don't care what it is. That's all I was thinking about at the moment. I used to climb, I don't know, those the poles for like 3 meters to put on this big ropes that cover the other houses from the fragments of the crashing, and without any protections, without any ropes or anything. So if I fall, I'm out. It's like, and nobody cares. Second thing is, I had an accident where a rusty nail came into my foot, which my foot is just a sneakers. I was working in sneakers at that time, and all their shoes is like with metal. I couldn't afford that at the time. So, and that's what put me in a hospital for tetanus or hashofu. Plus, you work in any type of weather. They don't stop. I had some times where snow is like around under my knees and we're still working and cleaning, and so they don't stop. Rain, snow, typhoons, you're gonna be working, so it's happening. It's no escape. Yeah. The way they saw me back then, yeah, I think it's all of them. They saw me as a refugee, as a Gaijin, as Middle Eastern with a beard. So yeah, that's all I think affected, like on the way I was treated. I felt like it's treating me as a slave, or just, like a maid running around, like take care of the shittiest stuff or small stuff. And if I don't understand, they yell at you, whatever. So yeah, I felt like I was discriminated at the time. I kind of knew that's how it's gonna happen, since the language is a big thing. I mean, maybe if I could understand the language, at least I can say yes, no, okay, I'm gonna do that. Not, I understand from the first time, so they have no chance, like, to, I don't know, bully me or discriminate me and stuff. But they also was one of the most terrible people I've dealt with, because they had no patience, no feeling that, okay, I'm a guy who fled his country and I'm still in shock. I'm under no residence legally, so they don't have this compassion, with you, or empathy, that they try to be patient with you, or they understand you. No, I don't regret it. I don't regret coming to Japan as refugees, because the first 2 years, yeah, they've been hard to me. They've been the worst in Japan, but also they're my main foundation to be the man I am now, or having the mentality I have now. Being positive and work hard, doesn't matter how hard the situation is. And it's always like, I've been in harder situations, so now I can overcome anything. So I'm very, very grateful also to these tough times. So yeah.
So the choice to work without a permit is not taken lightly, but it is used as a last resort. And as the earlier narrator said, many people do take this last resort to survive in Japan. when you get work, you are lucky because many times you're not able to get that work. But getting that work many times means that it comes along with the abuse and the hatred from people around you. I will move on to introducing the next narrator, which is our final narrator. He's gonna explain how the Haken system works and the state that supports the system.
Sorry about that. I just disappeared on it. I think it's going back okay again. Let me try to share the screen again. Tell me if the audio is okay.
Refugee workers, if you actually see what they really work for sustainability. They want to sustain their lives. They are not really, they are not really working with some joy. There's no joy in that work that they are doing. Because you wake up at 5 o'clock, you struggle with this thing, go to job, you may come back at the house in 12 midnight because you want to maintain, to show that you are powerful, and you want to maintain and show that you are strong enough. And with that one, you are degenerating. Like the working system in Japan, everything is based on power, on fear and power. If you go to any company, you see how they work. Now, if you look at it critically, they don't employ directly, they employ through Haken Kaishas. And with these Haken Kaishas, they don't look whether you are efficient, but they look but how you are powerful. It is that power aspect. If you are not powerful, how much you can carry, how much you can run, how much you can, so it's really power. So, but they don't see to it whether you use intelligence or anything to do anything. It is that power effect that if you become afraid if you don't seem to have that. And most people in the companies, they work long hours, like to show that they are powerful. And these long hours that they work, when you look at it, it is not anything effective. Because once you've worked, the body is like, when you work to a certain level, you cannot continue to give more of that power, more of that, but you have to remain to show that you are, to maintain yourself as a powerful person. So, and to maintain that power concept, it is that fear, it is the fear that you may be taken away from the job. Kaisha employs you. The management of the company pays you, say, 1,700 per hour. The Haken Kaisha gives you 1,000 per hour. For the whole day, you work 10 hours. The Haken has got 7,000 on you, doing nothing, but you are the one who are in the labor, this thing. It makes you not to have a voice. The people know that they have only a short period of time. They cannot complain. The ladies cannot even complain. Why? Because if you complain, you are just thrown. The company don't care about whether you have an accident or anything of that sort. They take it per se. That is the Haken Kaisha know that if you don't come to work, another person can come. Because the Haken is the people making the money. Everywhere they have reduced the company levels, especially to the refugees. It's Haken that manage everything, that do everything. And the Haken is like exploiting the workers. Because if the workers themselves could sit, they have no right. They have no right as humans. Do you think they have rights? If they could gather themselves up and see the working system, that this is not really what is supposed to happen, will they not even pronounce it even to internationally? In a whole year, people like 10,000 will apply for refugee, give two people refugee status, but everyone designated activities. What is the meaning of that nonsense? You want slaveries, you want people to come and slave for you, then after you use them, you throw them away? Because as you work in that type of hard conditions with so much power, you reduce psychologically, because you are battered psychologically, you are battered physically. In the final analysis, you go down, and when you go down, it is the time that they would say they have cancelled the refugee application. If you came here the first day, they say, please, in 2 or 3 days, please, we don't accept you as a refugee. Go to another country. It's a good idea. Not be giving you 6 months. Designated activities. What's the meaning of that designated activity? They should think and see how they can organize the working system. They need workers. The government need workers. That is the total environment. They need workers. Because if you look at it from the global aspect, the population is aging. They need strong people to assist them. Be frank. Be frank. You can even tell them that don't do anything. Don't even give them the visa. Give them the ability to work. And make the working system stable. When you work and you understand the work, you put in more energy, more force, and more. That is to do it well. Not that you are moving in fear. Am I clear? Have I answered your question?
So this narrator used to be a union organizer in his home country. He's explaining us the exploitative nature of irregular labor. He's asking Japan to be honest and not claim their support for refugees if all they do is use them and then toss them away. This is a common statement that hopefully can push us all to think how to change the system and make it better for those who are stuck in it. To conclude a little bit all of these different clips, I think that there is a lack of information and a lack of understanding of who and what it is like to be a refugee, asylum seeker. And hopefully this project can help spread awareness and change the initial reaction that people have when they meet while working and when they meet someone and try to understand their background. Thank you.
Just a sec. So final slide. Moving forward, we're still interviewing. We are, Rosa's working on putting things together into a single film. And one thing I guess we want to ask people and we keep on asking ourselves, are we telling the story in a more accurate way? Is this a different way of telling it? We do show it periodically. We have a monthly refugee cafe, and we show these short clips there. The refugees kind of hang out, and we hang out together. I think, Rosa, do you think they enjoy watching, or like what have they said to you?
I think, well, first of all, I think it has been a very I don't know if positive, but a very, I think also challenging for the refugees that have have joined us in the project and have opened up to talk to people that they don't know, and also open up to the refugees that are coming to those events and listening to their stories. I think it's not a very common thing for them to speak about what they're going out, what's going on in their daily lives. So being able to really speak in front of a camera and do that in front of new students and other refugees is something that I really, really appreciate, and also think that it's so that's so much strength in them to be able to do that. And I hope that for the students that have been watching it and today as well, raises like questions of what to do to change, or really just be open when interacting with people from these kind of backgrounds.
Okay, so thank you so much for watching our stuff, and we have a little bit of time for question and answer. I apologize for the technological disappearance. It hasn't happened to me, so I don't quite know what happened, but I do apologize for that.
Hey, thank you, Rosa, and thank you, David, for this very compelling presentation, and also the film clips. And so I think it's time for us to have a discussion.